Hello, my name is Stephanie Murphy. I'm presenting for Addictions Family Counseling for my last semester for my bachelor's degree in Human Services with the Youth and Family concentration. I have chosen to do my presentation today on the Netflix movie called 4 Good Days. It came out in 2021 and it is on Netflix. This movie is about a 30-year-old who has been struggling for addiction for a few years now. Her mother would help her with her addiction, but recently, in the last few years, she did a lot of lying and stealing from her mother, and her mother just watched her struggle with her addiction and get help so many times that she just started to get over it and not thinking that she could ever change, and really just fed up with everything that her daughter was doing. So then she ended up going to her door saying that she did want help and that she was serious this time, that she wanted to be clean, but her mother wouldn't let her in because she did not believe it, because it was something that she always heard her say. In chapter 1, we spoke about why to work with particular families and to facilitate engagement of selected members of the family and to help with treatment and recovery process is a main reason of why we work with families and addictions. And in this movie is a great example of that, because it was the mother and the mother being over the daughter's addiction, and multiple times she would come back and back for more help, and the mother was just not seeing eye to eye this time, did not think that she was serious about serious about getting clean, and the mother just did not want to help. But when you're dealing with addiction, family support is very strong and encourages you to do well. So her mother finally seeing what she was wanting to do and help her was a big asset in her recovery. In chapter 2, we talk about family systems that relate to families. In this family, in this movie, the mother felt the effect from the daughter's substance abuse. She felt disconnected, stolen from, and lied to. She had given up hope for her daughter's recovery and didn't want to help her again. She had helped her so many times that she just really did not believe that this time she was actually serious and really wanted to go through with recovering and being sober. In chapter 3, we spoke all about what makes a difference in treatment. And a big one that I saw in this movie is client contributions. The daughter wanted to go to rehab this time. No one was forcing her to, and she had an end goal of getting the Vitrol shot, which is an anti-craving medication that you get every 30 days as a shot, and it helps you not crave the substance that you're using, so it allows you to be sober without craving, so you're able to have that sobriety. She was really serious about getting help this time. She spent the whole first night that her mother wouldn't let her in the house. She spent it outside her house sleeping in the cold. This made her mother realize that she was serious this time and that she really did want to get help. And the mother actually did end up letting her in the next morning and going through with helping her, because she saw that she was really contributing to wanting to get help and really serious in getting the help this time. And working with families is what we spoke about in chapter 4 with basic skills. And in this one, there was no therapist. They didn't actually go to a therapist, but they did meet with a doctor. And the doctor met with the mother and daughter and established a mutual goal to stay clean for 4 days in order to get this Vitrol shot, that she would have to stay with her mother those 4 days clean so she could get this shot administered. Both the mother and daughter agreed to the goal. This caused a lot of intensity for both of them in the house, as the daughter was going through withdrawals and the mother was constantly on her toes and not fully trusting that her daughter was meaning well. She was always looking behind her back, thinking that if she was possibly stealing from her. When she did go out a few times during the day, she did think that she was maybe lying about where she was going, and she really had her guard up. In chapter 5, we spoke about accessing motivation. In this movie, the motivation they both had in the daughter was to stay clean, allowing her to get the Vitrol shot. She had to stay clean for 4 days to get it, and that was her main motivation, is to stay clean for that period of time so she can get this injection and be able to use that to limit her cravings and allow her to stay sober. In chapter 6, we spoke about negotiating a contract for therapy. In this movie, like I said, they didn't really go to therapy, but they did she did do a 3-day detox before going home to detox, and they did meet with a doctor. With the doctor, they did make a contract with the doctor to stay sober for 4 days in order to get the injection. So that is the contract that they had acquired with the mother and daughter. In chapter 7, we spoke about problem and solution sequences. The daughter realized a sequence in her using was that she was living in halfway houses, living with other addicts and others who did use, which did not allow her to have a good environment to want to stay sober because she was constantly going into peer pressure. And then in chapter 8, we spoke about the ups and downs of change. The daughter was doing very well with being sober, but the doctor extended the shot injection. It was supposed to be 4 days. It ended up having to be 7 days. So she had to go an additional 3 days being sober. She ended up leaving for the weekend away from her mother's house. And when she came back, it was the day of the injection. She did confess to her mother that she did use over the weekend. And she begged her mother to use her urine in order to pass the drug test. The mother was very contemplating at that time, very disappointed, very angry, but she wanted her daughter to get this injection so she could use it for her sobriety, because she knew that getting this injection would allow her the strength to not crave the medicine and hopefully go longer being sober. So the mother did end up giving her the urine to pass the drug test. She did pass the drug test and she did get the shot. And unfortunately, because she had stuff in her system, it did make her very sick and she was rushed to the hospital. It did flash back a few days. It did go fast forward a few days and she ended up being sober from the shot and not using. And she was getting that shot repeatedly every 30 days and it was allowing her to fight the urges to use and keeping her sober. So it was a big up and down in this scenario, and it did actually work out for the down, but it did go back and forth. In chapter 9, we spoke about ending treatment. Like I said, there was no therapy treatment in here, but there was the treatment with her doctor. So after she made it those 4 days, she did make it to her end goal for the treatment that she was going through. She did complete her 3 days of detox, then completed her 7 days of staying sober at her mother's house. Well, staying sober because she didn't end up using at her mother's house. So she did successfully end the treatment to get the visceral shots to become sober. And then some resources that I have. When you're struggling with addiction, you're supposed to go through a few stages. The first would be a detox, which is up to 7 days, usually 3 to 7 days for detox. And then you go to what they call residential stage. And in your residential stage, you're still inpatient and you would stay in that stage for about 21 days. So total about 30 days for detox and residential. And then after that, they would encourage you to go to PHP, which is partial hospitalization program. In that program, you are still inpatient, but you do live in apartment style living, so it does start to adapt you back into regular life. And then after PHP, they would go ahead and encourage you to live into a sober living while maintaining IOP, AA meetings, NA meetings, and a sponsor. IOP is intensive outpatient. It is daily meetings on top of your AA meetings or NA meetings, which helps you, and it does give you a therapist with it. So some resources that I have for that, for the detox and residential: Banyan Treatment Center. They're in Stewart, they're in Pompano, and they are in Boca. They do detox and residential, as well as PHP. They have one in Pompano, a location in Pompano, as well as a location in Boca, and those are for your PHP level of care. And then for IOP, references I have are Clean Recovery, which they offer telehealth and they offer in-person meetings, as well as Recovery 112, which also offers both, and Banyan Telehealth, which offers online telehealth IOP options for people. And they do have morning meetings and they do have night meetings to accommodate your schedule. You usually meet 2 to 3 times a week. And then with the sober living, some places in Florida are Tiffany Sober Living or Tribe Recovery. Those are 2 options for sober living. And then for visual shots, I did include a website that you can go to for information on how to get a visual shot and how to go for that, and all the information on that, and how you get it every 30 days and how it can help cravings. Usually you do need to get a referral from a doctor, like a psychiatrist, to get those shots going, and a psychiatrist usually wants to see you go through the stages of treatment that I just discussed in order to start the pivotal shots, and they do help a lot of people, and it is something that can be useful if you have resorted,
to support him. And,
or if you have resorted all, if you have resorted all means of help. And that concludes my presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I thank you so much.